We have an entire sky within us, our fiery strength and heavenly origin, Luna, which symbolizes the continuous motion of the soul and body, Mars, speed, and Saturn, slowness, the Sun, God, Jupiter, law, Mercury, reason, and Venus, humanity. To delve a little deeper into the interdependence between the psyche and the planets and astrology, we need to go to an era predating Jung's work, and well after the final Neoplatonists of the ancient tradition. This era lies comfortably seated in the period known as the Renaissance, approximately 14th to the 17th centuries. This rebirth was of essentially the classical tradition, when these ancient thinkers and philosophers were being rediscovered in a world that had just transitioned from the medieval worldview. The cultural products of the Renaissance include Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, and the Medicis, and innumerable other figures that planted the seeds for a continuity of tradition in the spheres of culture, art, music, politics, architecture, you name it. But what name I want to focus on today is Marsilio Ficino, Italian scholar, Catholic priest, humanist philosopher, astrologer, reviver and translator of Plato's works, and reinvigorator of the Neoplatonic tradition. And finally, two other titles that we can add to his name, namely psychologist of the soul and magus, arguably two synonyms for the same practice. In order to move closer towards understanding what Ficino was saying, it is important to understand what he means when he says soul. Soul resides as the two faces of Janus, as a mediator between two functions, that being the realm of matter on the one hand and the intellect on the other. Soul is the thing that allows ideas to be connected to the body. Otherwise, there is a detachment between ideas and thoughts in our own embodied aspect. How many people have we met who can speak intelligibly and reason quite viciously, such that the thoughts and ideas are so abstract and removed from everyday realities that they become floating heads full of hot air, virtually ungrounded and divorced from the practical aspects of life? On the flip side, we have those who are hyper-focused on their body and the material wants and needs of their being. They're over-concerned with health and fitness. All reasonable things to maintain, but ramped to such a degree as to live entirely unconscious of the thoughts and feelings and ideas that motivate their behavior and actions. Such people are wholly divorced from the intellect. The soul mediates the two. Soul is also that blurred interface that expresses itself through dreams, images, archetypal stories, mythologies, and the Imaginatio, also known as imagination, emotion, feeling. There are times when an emotion will grab hold of us, and in many ways, inexplicably, through no real external or seemingly internal motivating force. Soul can also express itself in body language, mannerisms, tics. Everything we experience is through sensation. In essence, everything we know, think, feel, whether through visible or invisible things, is processed in our brains or minds by the senses. But it would be wrong to think that we use our senses. For the majority of people, the senses use us. It is we who are cast along by our noses from one tweet to another, text message to a text message, to the grumbling of our bellies, the anxiety provoked by dwelling on the future or past regrets or what have you. So many of us look at objects without actually perceiving these objects. That sense of perception or attention focuses in on the object or thought form, and through that, the imagination comes into play. Of course then, a whole series of other videos will have to be created on that one word Imaginatio, since it has been perverted in modern parlance to mean something akin to fantasy, or falsehood, or unreality, simply of the imagination. However, the imagination is a function of the soul. It is that interweaving of the external object and the image that is brought in through the eyes and worked upon and transformed by the imagination of the soul. This is a great parallel with Jung's rediscovery of an ancient practice called active imagination. A talisman functions using these principles. When you create one, you are bringing into being an image or an icon, something akin to a reflected mirror that holds sympathetic correspondences with the planetary power it is trying to evoke. In a way, you are utilizing your memory and your imagination to bring significance and heightened awareness of the god or gods that you invoke through that meditation. The same applies to poetry or music. In Ficino's words, the soul, when stimulated by images of bodies, brings to light forms that are lurking in the recesses of the mind. Everything we can recall when we use our memory colors the way in which we perceive reality. Our soul cannot help but lay claim to the reality that we embody. Our memories and our imaginations, which are interlinked as facets of the soul, can take an objective event in the real world and transmute it with our own independent colorings of its significance to us, an emotional reaction to what we see. Astrologically speaking, there are multiple complexities in relation to fate, but one concept should be broached, and that is the daemon. For one cannot speak of the ancient notions of fate without mention of the daemon. The personal daemon is neither good nor bad in essence. It is one's relationship to the daemon that determines the quality. The ego has its will and its false sense of autonomy and self-sufficiency. Yet the daemon, like the one Socrates spoke of, is that inner voice that speaks to one from the depths. To support the health and proper functioning of the psyche, Ficino encouraged us to discover our own daemon. There are various ways this can be done. One can be through strict attention of the motivating forces that govern your life, whether depression and aloofness and heaviness, which are qualities of Saturn, joviality, generosity, larger-than-life presence, wealth of spirit and material things in Jupiter, preoccupations with beauty, sensuality, the body, matter, love, qualities of Venus, anger, rage, hostility, assertiveness, warrior-like spirit in Mars. It should be noted also that even within each god, the entire subset of the other gods are contained. Each god is the sun with the planets revolving around them. For example, Venus herself, as the central sun, has Mercury and Mars encircling her. Therefore, there are mercurial and Martian aspects to Venus, giving subtle shades and characteristics to her influence. Ficino noted that psychological imbalance or ill health was a result of the jealousy of the god who is the daemon, an entire possession of the person and unwilling to renounce any influence to the other gods. This all-pervading and consuming depression can be signs of the jealous inhibitions of the work of Saturn at the exclusion of all other influences. Ficino echoes the Pythagoreans when he sets out to counterbalance the cold, damp, slow, and heavy tendencies of Saturn's influence, which he was born under, with a more airy and lighter aspect of Jupiter, or Phoebus, the sun. The truly healthy individual is the one who is balanced by having created a receptacle for all the diversity of the gods. There is an interesting parallel with the Pythagorean symbol of the pentad, a fearfully maligned symbol by those who are influenced by Christian polemical writings and heresiologists. Hygeia, interestingly, is the ancient Greek word for our derivative of hygiene. The Pythagoreans also equated hygeia with proportion. The word means hygiene in terms of cleanliness and health, but more importantly and fundamentally of what it connotes, which is harmony and balance. Many ancient commentators have also observed the shape that the pentad suggests, that of a man with his 4 limbs and his head spread out, a symbol of the microcosmic man. As Iamblichus says, the daemon does not guide just one or another part of our being, but all of them at once, and it extends to us the whole administration of us, even as it has been allotted to us from all the regions of the universe. The soul has one ruling daemon in one's lifetime. This is referred to as the oikio despotes, or master of the house. There are many divergent ways in which this can be determined, but Iamblichus believed that such rigid technical rules was inferior to true inner gnosis, as humans can make many errors in their calculations. Furthermore, revealing the daemon through theurgic practice can sometimes be achieved through meditation on the images or caracteres, or even the synthemata corresponding to it, of the planet, of the master of the house. One strategy for determining one's daemon is by observing one's natal horoscope. The sun sign that you are assigned is what people typically imagine as their true zodiac representation. For example, if you're born in December, your sign would be Sagittarius. Depending on the timing and geographic location of one's birth, the ascendant, or oikio despotes, can be calculated, that being the sign that emerged from the east of your sun sign. Your ascendant, therefore, would be your guiding god, the planetary ruler of your nativity. The daemon also serves as the soul's coordinator for descent into the material realm. Determining one's daemon was not gained by human effort and will, but directly and theurgically, as Shaw says, by the Lord of Daemons. Iamblichus is quoted here again. The invocation of these guardian daemones is effected through their one ruler god, who from the beginning distributed individual daemones to every soul, and in the sacred rites he reveals the individual daemon to each soul according to his own will. For in the theurgic hierarchy, subordinate entities are always invoked by their superiors. Consequently, in the case of daemones, one universal leader of those who are charged to rule over generation dispatches individual daemons to every entity. And when the familiar daemon appears to each soul, then he reveals his particular mode of worship as well as his name, and he also teaches the particular manner of invoking him. Looping our discussion back to Ficino's understanding, let's look at another quote by Iamblichus regarding the working of the soul's Imaginatio in this process. The presence of the gods gives us health of body, virtue of soul, and purity of mind. In short, it elevates everything in us to its proper principle. It annihilates what is cold and destructive in us. It increases our heat and causes it to become more powerful and dominant. It makes everything in the soul consonant with the nous. It causes a light to shine with intelligible harmony. And it reveals the incorporeal as corporeal to the eyes of the soul by means of the eyes of the body. This working of the imagination is key, but this is not human fantasy as we understand it. This isn't something that is made up. Theologically speaking, this is an active vehicle of the soul and the means by which the human and the divine communicate. Later on, it would be important to investigate the imagination through the works of Henry Corbin. In her book, Jung's Studies in Astrology, Prophecy, Magic, and the Qualities of Time, Liz Green quotes Jung. "I have patients who, evening after evening, work at these images, painting and shaping their observations and experiences. The work has a fascination for them. It is the fascination which the archetypes always exert upon consciousness. It is a sort of magical effect, that is, a suggestive influence, which goes out from the images to the individual, and in this way his unconscious is extended and is changed. She compares this suggestive influence, which Jung describes, to Iamblichus's declaration of the transformation of the soul through secret symbols. Beings beyond form, brought under the control of form, things superior to all image, reproduced through images. Here Iamblichus is perfectly describing the symbol and its function in theurgy. From Iamblichus to Ficino to Jung, we can see how the world as theophany is animated by the gods in all their guises, and how these energies permeate all aspects of our reality. As Henry Corbin demonstrates, the entire world itself is a living image or symbol of the divine. Take care for now.